Baruch Hashem, it's day number 18 of our Rambam Sefer HaMitzvos. And as mentioned yesterday, we are studying one mitzvah in depth for a few days. And we also explained the reason for that. The way it works is we don't go through the Sefer HaMitzvos in order. What we're doing is we're studying whatever mitzvahs correspond to what's being studied currently in the 3 chapters a day of Mishnah Torah. And in the 3 chapters a day of Mishnah Torah, we're studying right now Hilchos Tshuva, the laws of repentance. Laws of repentance is in total 10 chapters. Today is chapter 4, 5, and 6 of Hilchos Tshuva. And it's just one biblical mitzvah in the entire subject. As such, we have a unique opportunity to really luxuriate to some extent, just taking our time looking at different aspects of this one mitzvah. We're not in such a rush like we were in previous days. So that being the case, I wanted to indulge myself to share a pertinent milsa dibdichasa. That means a joke, but it's a pertinent joke, and it should be apparent in just one moment why this is germane. The joke is a Chelm story that the wise men of Chelm convened a meeting to deal with a crisis that apparently someone had been down to the local jailhouse and heard that many of the men being held there complained that they were unjustly accused, that they were in fact innocent. So the wise men of Chelm had this meeting that there are so many men in jail who claim to be innocent. What should we do about this apparent miscarriage of justice? So they went back and forth, they deliberated, and in the end they decided, you know what, if there are so many innocent men in jail, the only sensible solution is this. We're going to have to build a second jail. One jail will be for the guilty, and the second jail will be for those who are innocent. Okay, that was the Chelm story. Joke, Milsa D'B'duchasa. Why am I telling you this? The mitzvah to confess is to confess whenever one repents for any sin. However, there's also a very specific application, and that is in the context of capital punishment, which we're not going to get into depth right now talking about that. The high court and how it administers the death penalty, that's a subject we're going to deal with much, much later, almost to the very end of our yearly cycle when we get to the 14th book of the 14 books of Mishnah Torah. But suffice it to say, there are situations in which the death penalty was carried out historically, and before the person would be executed, they would be instructed to confess so that they can leave this world with a clean slate. So there's an interesting discussion about a scenario where somebody is unjustly accused, where there were false witnesses or conspiring witnesses, and the person's being executed, and they didn't do what they're being executed for. So what should they do? Should they confess? Confess what? They didn't do anything. So it's interesting that Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvos says different than how he says in Mishnah Torah later in Hilchos Sanhedrin. Here in Sefer HaMitzvos, the Rambam says that you have to look at what the verse says when it says V'yisvadu es chatosam. I'm talking about in Bamidbar Perek Hey, that's chapter 5, verse 7. It says they should confess their sins, asher asu, that they did. The previous verse, the verse right before that, which is Perek Hey, Pasuk Vav, chapter 5, verse 6, it says that Va'oshma hanefesh hahi, that this person, calls it a soul here, but this person was guilty. Va'oshma was guilty. So the Mechilta, that's a source of halachic medrash from the sages. The Mechilta says that based on those words, we're to understand that only a guilty person would confess. And therefore, a person who was convicted of a crime he did not commit would not say that confession. And that's what the Rambam says here in Sefer HaMitzvos based on the Mechilta. However, interestingly, in Mishnah Torah, later on in Hilchos Sanhedrin, meaning in the last book of the 14 books, Hilchos Sanhedrin, Perek Yud Gimel Halacha Aleph. That's chapter 13, law number 1. The Rambam says, and this is based on not the Mechilta, but another source of equal reliability, the Talmud. The Rambam bases himself on a Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Mem Gimel Omid Beis 43b, where it says that they made it an across-the-board policy that even the innocent should confess. Why did they make that policy? Because when a person's brought out to be executed, what statement, what's the last opportunity he has to make a statement of protest? He'll refuse to confess. He'll say, no, I'm an innocent man. And guilty people will forego the opportunity to confess, which would be good for them spiritually. But they'll insist on not confessing because they want to appear innocent. So because of that concern, they made it an across-the-board policy. No. Everybody confesses. Yeah, we know you're innocent. But confess nevertheless. Everybody confesses in that context. At any rate, like I said, the mitzvah to confess is anytime one does teshuvah, not just in this very, very specific and rare, extremely rare context, but since we have extra time to talk about this mitzvah, I wanted to share that interesting aspect of that mitzvah with you. We'll see you tomorrow for more about the mitzvah of confession, God willing.